I'm Janelle Stelton-Holtmeyer, Associate Editor of Modern Distribution Management. Welcome to this month's Executive Briefing. With me here today is Editor Lindsay Konzak. In this month's episode, we're talking about the changing role of women within the industry. Not that long ago, it was rare to see women in executive and management positions. It was automatically assumed that women at industry events were there in administrative roles, as was the case with Tammy Miller, now CEO of Border States Electric in Fargo, North Dakota, when she attended her first National Association of Electrical Distributors meeting in the mid-1990s.
But the industry is changing. As we've reported, there's a need for skilled workers to replace the aging demographic in both distribution and manufacturing, and women are stepping up to fill those roles.
I recently spoke with Nancye Combs, President and CEO of HR Enterprise, about how the role of women has changed within the industry. What are some of the challenges that women face in a primarily male industry such as distribution and manufacturing?
We ask about the comparison, of course, between now and 20 years ago. Most interestingly, when I am speaking at one of the conferences for manufacturing and distribution, I see in my audience a sea of males, only a few women. All the senior level jobs seem to me males, and interestingly, they're white males. There are a few women, but I think one of the challenges, if we look at the challenges, first is the stereotype that women either don't know about those things or they're not interested in manufacturing and distribution, especially at the senior level, at the management level, or at the ownership level. And because historically women have not been in those kinds of jobs, they have had to reach in order to have product knowledge. In manufacturing and distribution requires, of course, if you're manufacturing, you're making something, you need to understand that whole process of manufacturing as well as understanding the products you're making. And in distribution, you have to be knowledgeable of supply chain all the way along the chain. And women historically have not been put in key jobs in either one of those industries. A few women have an advantage if their parents were involved. If you think about distribution, particularly distribution, distributors typically started many years ago as a family business. So a second or third generation is running many of the smaller distributors. And they're handed down from father to son to grandson. Now, if there's a woman and there's only a woman, then maybe they're handed down to daughter, and then we have an opportunity for a woman to have a key role in those kinds of businesses. But because it was male-dominated and it was family-owned, it'll be handed down to the next male in line. And those are challenges because they are traditionally done. It's traditionally done like that.
Are you seeing more women today taking on those leadership roles?
I am, but it is because they have specifically and significantly said, this is what I'm going to do, and they've pushed for it. And I believe one of the reasons is because we are seeing more women in technical occupations who are preparing themselves educationally. We have many, many more women in engineering schools. I have a colleague who went to university in engineering, earned a degree in engineering, electrical engineering as a matter of fact, and she told me that 25 years ago there were 2 women in her class, and now engineering classes may be 30 or 40% women. So women are moving toward technical education. They co-opt, an engineering position in an organization, and that familiarizes the company with them before they ever graduate. And once they graduate, then the company just scoops them right up. And so I think it's starting back at the education level as women pursue and are encouraged to pursue more technical occupations.
You mentioned the stereotype about women just not being interested in these types of fields. Is that, I've heard that from several people, including women. Is that actually something that the industry has to deal with?
Oh, I think, yes, of course it is. And I also think that there are subtle changes. There are two things that I think are just truly clever, and I noticed them because of my own experience. Now, you probably have never seen me. Maybe you have, but if you don't, you may not know that I, of course, have been in this business for 40 years. That makes me part of the oldest generation, which we call the traditional generation. But actually, I'm the older baby boomer. And what I have seen happen now is that we have many very talented, well-educated women in large organizations. And they're walking through the door with an MBA, and they're buyers. So in comes the baby boomer white male who wants to do business with them. And they want to be treated like a professional equal. And they're offended by some of the behavior, especially anything that shows either a condescending or familiar behavior, such as, calling them sweetheart, honey, and what's a little lady like you doing in a big job like this? They don't find that amusing. So if you want to do business with many of the very large organizations, then you have to recognize that some of the key positions will be held by very talented Generation X women. And those women mean business. They're well educated, they know what they're talking about, and they hold key administrative and perhaps procurement roles. Now, keeping in mind that historically, the relationships between distributors and manufacturers and retailers, they're all relationship business. They all know each other. They all play golf together. They all go to these big meetings as manufacturers' reps, distributors, wholesalers of all kinds, manufacturers. They all know each other. They've all been doing business together for years and years and years. They've got a club. Well, as these talented females with advanced education start moving in, they don't care about the club. They want to know what's your price. What are your terms? What's your delivery date? What's my discount? And they don't really care who your dad is. They're interested in doing business. So the days of just making deals and then you don't really have to sell them anything, you just sort of repeat the order, those are quickly going away. The smaller companies still have those really tight relationships, but I don't believe we will ever have an attitude change that women will go back to lesser administrative, non-decision-making roles, because there's just a workforce now that is more and more being filled by well-educated, talented women who know how to do business and do business the right way.